What does the highest paid European magician in the world show look like? I couldn't wait to find out. This is Chris with Branson's Best Shows. I was excited when I heard an obviously successful overseas magician was moving to Branson, Missouri. On top of that, I was blown away when I received an email from his manager asking me personally to come to his VIP sneak peek performance. His name is Antonio Diaz, better known overseas as El Mago Pop, and he purchased the old Mel Tillis Theater just north of Branson this year. Now, to be honest, I have been to more than my fair share of VIP opening nights, and they normally draw a pretty good crowd, but this theater holds 2,800 people. That's a bunch of seats, even in Branson. So when we were headed to the theater, I figured it'd be 30 to 50% full. Now, a 1,000-seat draw is nothing to be ashamed of, but to my utter surprise, when I turned the corner into the parking lot, I was met with a sea of cars. Not only did they fill the theater, but many were turned away. As we entered the theater lobby, it seemed like all of Branson had showed up. So many entertainers, including world-famous magician Dave Hamner.
Hi, everybody. We're here. We're excited. We're ready to go.
Now, before we dive into the good, the bad, and the ugly of a show, I would like to mention that not only am I Chris with Branson's Best Shows, I'm also Chris, the owner of the magic shop out at Silver Dollar City for the last 20 years. Let me know in the comments below if any of you have visited my shop over the last 20 years. All right, let's get started with the good points of El Mago Pop's show. First and foremost, this guy is incredibly energetic. From the moment he steps on stage, his enthusiasm is infectious, and it sets the tone for the entire performance. He was running and bouncing the entire time. As far as production goes, he spared no expense on things like LED walls, lighting rigs, and special effects like fire and sparks. It did look like it was his touring rig, so once he has settled into the theater, it may be even more elaborate. Another part that stood out to me was how Diaz weaves his own life story into the performance. He spoke about as a child he saw a YouTube video where a guy changed a Rubik's Cube into a bunch of candies. Now, as he grew older, he realized that that was actually a camera trick and was impossible. But it must have made a huge impact because it was a continuing thread throughout his show. Furthermore, he informed us that he had successfully devised a method to perform the magic trick he had witnessed on that YouTube video, and he proceeded to demonstrate the trick right before our eyes. It was nice that he added a personal touch that created a stronger connection with the audience. You were able to get to know the man behind the magic, and it added an extra layer of depth to the overall experience. Now let's move from the good to the bad of the show. It has to be said there is definitely a cultural divide going on here. What might be a trendy look overseas comes off a little more like Howard Wolowitz over here. Also, despite his efforts to learn English and perform in America, his pronunciation can still be a bit unclear at times. I found myself not relaxing but straining to understand what he was saying, which was a bit annoying. Now, I think these challenges can be overcome, and his passion for magic shines through regardless. But I do feel if he would talk a bit slower, it would help immensely. Putting looks and language aside, one of the biggest problems with the show was the sheer amount of audience participation. Now, don't get me wrong, involving the audience is an essential part of any magic show, and when done well, it many times is the highlight of the show. However, in El Mago Pop's performance, there seemed to be an overemphasis on audience participation instead of on grand illusions. And speaking of grand illusions, there was a glaring lack of them. I'm not saying he didn't do any, but there were more what I would call the filler level of tricks. Good illusions that you put in the center of your show. His show felt very much like a close-up or parlor show with a few big illusions thrown in. Now let me explain. There are three sizes of magic tricks: close-up, parlor, or stage. Now understand, size does not mean quality. Some of the most impressive magicians perform what we call close-up. Close-up is just that, right under your nose. It truly is impressive when a magician can fool you when you can see everything. The next size is parlor. This is the middle size. These tricks can be done for a bigger audience, but normally fit on a table or in a case. The final is the stage illusions. These are the big ones that normally take a semi-trailer to move around. Now, he is in a theater that seats 2,800 people. The show should be mainly grand illusions that everyone can see from their seats, with a few close-up or parlor tricks done with a camera on stage to aid and see what was going on. Well, I'd say I spent half of the time looking at those screens because I couldn't see the tricks from my seat, and I was on the 9th row. And that makes sense. He is mainly performed on TV or in smaller venues, but if he's going to satisfy the Branson audience, he's going to have to shift his tricks to more of the big illusions. Finally, let's look at the ugly. Let's touch on the topic of making it in Branson. It is no secret that Branson can be a tough market for performers. Even national touring acts who play to massive crowds on the road often struggle to draw significant audiences in Branson. I'm not sure if Antonio Diaz fully realizes the challenges that come with establishing a consistent fan base in this city. And this lack of understanding makes this next point even more grave. Why did he buy that theater when there are so many amazing facilities on the Strip that he could have purchased? Well, it's because he bought it for a dual purpose. Not only will it serve as his main theater in the States, but also as a home base, with plenty of storage for his touring show. In fact, he will be spending a few weeks on Broadway this August. But I'm afraid this might be a fatal weakness. There's what I call the 10% rule. So what is that? As in most things, people want to be where the crowd is. It's a way to judge if we've made a good decision or not. You show up to a restaurant on a Saturday night at 7 p.m. and it's empty, chances are it's not very good. It's the same thing with theaters. I have found that if a theater isn't at least 10% full, the audience feels like they have made a mistake in choosing that show. It almost doesn't matter how good the show is, it will be stained by the fact that no one else thought it was a good enough show to go to. I'm afraid it might be harder than El Mago Pop thinks to draw a good crowd in such a large theater so far away from the Strip. Now, despite these critiques, I'm still very excited to have El Mago Pop join us in Branson. Even though he has not announced his schedule for next year, we assume he will be doing a summer run in his new theater, the Branson Magic Theater, for the 2024 season. I encourage you to see his show, as well as explore the many other fantastic magic shows that Branson has to offer. Branson has almost become a magic capital with so many magic shows in town. No doubt, that is one of the reasons that El Mago Pop was drawn to Branson. And if you'd like to see another video about the top 10 shows in Branson, click here, or down below is my latest video as we explore Branson together.